Welcome back. I know you've had a fun day today. I think you had your awards overview, which is always it's a lot of nitty gritty and very specifics, but also very, very important. How those funds actually get from our goodwill and the goodwill of GE-Reagan Foundation partnership into supporting your college studies is very important. And then I understand you had a pizza party networking thing earlier too. So I hope that was a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to this next session, session 7, Scholars on Campus and Beyond. And I want to introduce our panelists, and it should be a nice, fun kind of round robin discussion today. So I'll have you each introduce yourself, who you are, where you either go or went to college, what you're doing now, and a fun fact. You might see a familiar face, Tony, you saw yesterday, but I'm going to reintroduce Tony and bring him back and have him kick off the introduction. So Tony, go ahead.
Tony, thank you so much. Hi, everyone again. Congrats once again. My name is Tony Denhart. I went to school at Purdue University. I graduated about 32 years ago. I started my career at General Electric, and I'm still there today. Today, I'm the University Relations Director, and I focus on recruiting, the relationship management, and research at our key schools. And one fact, and I'll really just play off of the month of May in Indianapolis, Indiana. I live in Indiana, and the Indianapolis 500. And I've ridden in the 2-seater, and I've won 180 miles in that at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you, Tony. Next up, Peyton.
Hi, everybody. My name is Peyton Gomez. I currently go to the University of Washington Foster School of Business, where I study finance and information systems. And currently, I am actually a tech finance intern at Nordstrom, which is super fun. This happens to be during my lunch break, so I'm really excited to be here. And then a fun fact for me, I would say something that a lot of people don't assume about me is actually I went to a state golf tournament for all of Washington. So super fun in high school, great experience. But thank you for having me here.
Yeah, well, and Peyton, thank you for leveraging your lunch break to come and talk with this group of scholars. We appreciate it. Next up, Brandon.
Hey everybody, Brandon Fobble. I graduated from Carleton College in 2018, was a 2014 Reagan Scholar, and congratulations to all of you fine scholars. Right now, I'm at Wells Fargo in their corporate investment bank power utilities renewables team in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And a fun fact about me is that the last couple of years now, I've been volunteering for the YMCA. It's a family camp in northern Minnesota, just north of Duluth, called YMCA Camp Northern Lights. And I go up there and just kind of help out with different things on the board. And mainly my involvement is helping out with all the fundraising and things like that. But I get to head up there next week and enjoy the beautiful northern woods of Minnesota.
Excellent, excellent. We'll have a fun trip up to the northern woods, Brandon. Next up, we have Michael.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Chen. Right now I'm going to MIT up in Boston, and I'm studying mechanical engineering, and with a little bit of a focus on robotics. I literally just declared it a couple of weeks ago because I am a first year. I just started my first year and finished off. And yeah, I think one thing that I'm doing right now is I'm working on my own startup, which is called Pig Farm. It's an app to sort of help allow people to get access to fresh produce faster. And I'm also helping out at my parents' local restaurant. And a fun fact about me, sort of related to that restaurant aspect, is that I'm actually a sushi chef there. So I make sushi for my parents' restaurant.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have a favorite sushi type to make or any sushi recommendations?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're willing to try raw fish, like a combo sushi roll with like seaweed on the outside, some salmon, tuna, like fish and like egg and avocado inside. It's like an incredible combo, actually.
Nice. There we go. Straight from the source. We appreciate it, Michael. And then last but not least, I would ask you where you are. I would say I happen to know very precisely where you are, but we'll let you share that. So Odyssey.
Yo, yeah. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Odyssey Experience. I am currently in the press room of the Discovery Center at the Reagan Library. And that segues into what I'm doing this summer. I am interning for the Reagan Library, specifically for their student leadership program and helping out with any other side projects that they have working here. I just graduated this last May from UC Berkeley, where I majored in political science, economics, and computer science. And come this fall, I'll be starting my master's also at Berkeley in electrical engineering and computer science. And a fun fact about me is I have gotten lost for about an hour and a half roaming around in the underground catacombs of the Capitol building. And that's not very fun to do when you don't have anyone to talk to.
Oh, wow. Excellent. All right. So some fantastic fun facts. And let's jump into it. So this session is about scholars on campus and beyond. I'm going to start with Tony, who has extensive experience talking to our scholars, working with university level students. And over the years, you've spoken to our scholars a lot about managing change. So right now, not news to anybody on this call or anybody who's been paying attention to the world and our country in the last couple of years, but our nation and our world is in a time of really tremendous uncertainty, confusion, turmoil, coming out of a pandemic, coming out of political reckoning, kind of a racial reckoning in the country. It's just been a tremendous past 15, 16 months. How do your lessons from your many years at GE translate to these incoming freshmen who, in the period of a mass transition for society as a whole, are making a major transition in their own lives?
Tony, it seems, we talk about this, we touch on this every year during the retreat. And just as I think I'm not going to have any new stories or examples of change, I have another one. What I'll tell everyone is, as I said, I've been with the company 32 years, and it's been a consistent 32 years of change, which in my opinion is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because if change isn't happening, then you're not evolving, you're not innovating. With that said, a few points, a few things to consider. One is to recognize what is in your control and what is not, and really focus in on what you can control. I always try to tell everyone to keep a positive attitude, do what you love, and it makes the change a lot easier. I'm not going to ask for anyone to answer the question, but just think about when you hear the word GE and what comes to mind. And I'll provide what I usually hear, and that is GE Appliances and GE Lighting are two that come to mind. Some of you know about some of the other divisions. Both those divisions have been sold. When I started my career at GE 32 years ago, there were 13 businesses. Today, there are 4 core businesses: GE Aviation, GE Healthcare, GE Power, GE Renewable Energy, and then GE Additive and GE Research that cut across all 4 business units. So it's been continual change. And as I mentioned earlier, just as I think it's kind of moderating, the pace gets faster. A couple other things I just want to mention here is you need to know what's important to yourself. And as I mentioned before, doing what you love, going into college, having fun, loving your major, every corner you turn, there's probably going to be some kind of change. But keep in mind what I said earlier about how you react and, evolve with that change. And lastly, what I'd like to say is, think about, in the saying, I can't remember where it comes from, but after a hard day, remind yourself, if breaking a world record was easy, then everyone would do it, right?
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. And I'm going to throw a question to Michael here, but before I do, Aaron told me beforehand that I should tell a couple more Reagan stories. So I want to tell a quick story that will segue into the question I'm going to ask Michael. Typically, when we do these in person, I'll get up and tell different Reagan stories and some of the jokes he'd like to tell. But this one is actually a story about Ronald Reagan when he was a freshman in college, since that's the year that you are about to go into for our incoming scholars. So Ronald Reagan, as a freshman, went to Eureka College, which is a small liberal arts college in the middle of Illinois. It's still an incredibly small college. Not a massive institution or anything like that. He went there like many young men of his time. He was chasing a woman he was in love with, Margaret Cleaver, who was the daughter of the local pastor. And he thought, well, that's kind of the major decision point on where he went to college. He was in love. He got there. Turned out, well, she didn't return his feelings, but he stuck around and went to the college anyway. So about early in his freshman year, coming up on Thanksgiving, it was in the middle of a really rough time for Midwestern colleges and much of the country, right? We're heading into the Depression. And the president of Eureka College had to make some major cuts and said that he was going to fire a number of the professors who were on staff. So a number of these professors and teachers and instructors were beloved by the students. And they wanted to speak out against it, but some of the upperclassmen were worried there'd be reprisals. If they spoke out against it, their opportunity to graduate on time might be impacted. So they said, we need to choose somebody who doesn't have as much at stake. We need to find a freshman who can speak out against what's happening. And for whatever reason, the freshman they ended up choosing was Ronald Reagan, who at the time he had done a little bit of drama, but he was felt like he was an introvert, felt like he was kind of shy speaking publicly. But as a freshman, he was anointed as the person who was going to speak out against this policy, which they were going to announce the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving break. So people would already be gone. They'd be going home to their families for Thanksgiving. Sometimes that's how things work out, right? Like, what's going to give us the least blowback? But they found out about it, and Ronald Reagan got up on this stage at Eureka College and gave this impassioned speech about why this was the wrong thing to do. They could find cuts elsewhere. They didn't need to cut these classes back, which would negatively impact all the students. And as he was speaking, as he was making his points, the crowd was cheering, and he just felt this kind of surge of confidence that he hadn't felt before. For the first time in his life, as a freshman in college, he felt that his words could impact others, could influence others. As it turned out, the president of the university, once they got the backlash in part from this speech that he gave, they ended up letting the president go and keeping the professors. And so from that age, he thinks about that as like the first time he really realized the power of what he could do as a young leader. And just to kind of bring it on home and tie it to at Eureka College now, they have a scholarship that they give out to students called the Ronald Reagan Scholarship. And each year before these students start their freshman year, they take them to that same spot on the stage. They stand them where Ronald Reagan stood and say, this is what's possible for the freshmen who go to this college. You can be the most powerful person in the world. And so that's a long segue and kind of a story into a question for Michael, which is, as we have this group of 10 incoming outstanding freshmen, what can they expect? Maybe not, kind of the speech of that magnitude, but there's a lot of things that are possible for you in your freshman year, right? So Michael, I'm going to throw it to you. What advice would you give these incoming freshmen?
For sure. Yeah, I think freshman year is super exciting. And I was lucky enough not to have to do both semesters virtually. I actually got to experience my spring semester in person, and that leads to really closely what you all will end up experiencing this upcoming fall. I think that one of the big mistakes that students make whenever they're going into their first year, and one mistake that I made, was that I overloaded myself with classes. As Tony mentioned, and I think as you all will find out, there's so much more to college than just academics, and you can experience so many things. You can do so many things. You can have leadership positions and attend clubs. So don't overload yourself with classes and academics, and leave yourself time to make friends and to experience these other aspects of college that really make it worth it. And then to tag on to that, don't be afraid to try new things, because whenever you get to college, like Ronald Reagan had experienced, he had probably never done anything like that in his life and probably never imagined he would. But you guys will be faced with opportunities, new things that you guys have probably never had to do in the past, and to take those opportunities and make the most of them are going to be, incredible experiences. You'll get opportunities and offers to do things and to be a part of clubs and organizations that you probably wouldn't have imagined that you would have been a part of in the past. So I definitely recommend you expand your boundaries and try new things. And then finally, try and meet as many people as possible. College is all about connections and networking. And I think one of the big mistakes that people make coming into their freshman year is only making friends with other freshmen, because they are intimidated by other upperclassmen and other students. But definitely don't be afraid of that. In my freshman year, I was lucky enough to have a pod where I got to really fully experience college with 6 other people. And those individuals happened, some of them, to be upperclassmen. And that sort of forced me to be friends with these upperclassmen. But they ended up being so much help, whether it was needing to do better on my computer science homework, or have advice or something about any sort of experience you have on campus. So definitely make friends with upperclassmen, expand your horizons, try new things, and don't overload yourself with academics so you have time to experience all the amazing things about college.
Michael, I'm gonna ask a quick follow up. So, the great advice, kind of put yourself out there, join clubs. Is there a club or an experience that you remember from your freshman year that just really stands out as, oh wow, I'm in college now and life's a little different?
Yeah, I think that so I got really involved with a lot of the really special opportunities that MIT had to offer, and I think that a lot of colleges will have these things like hackathons where you'll be able to present ideas, not necessarily technical things, but where you can essentially bring up an idea and they'll give you funding and support to bring it to life. Almost every college has that in some way or another, and I highly recommend you take advantage of those. The way I got started with my startup was that I proposed it as just like an idea at one of these hackathons, and from that I was able to create a team. I was able to inspire other people to join me, and that's sort of how I got started over a year ago. So I recommend you guys take advantage of that. And of course, in terms of leadership opportunities, student councils are always an amazing way to do that. I think that through the Undergraduate Association of MIT, where essentially students get together and make decisions and policies that can influence how the university handles the decisions, joining an organization like that gives you a lot of experience and lets you be a part of something that influences what your next 4 years at the college will be like, which I think is pretty exciting. So definitely check that out. Every school has something like that. So definitely look into those undergraduate associations, as well as hackathons and other ways that you can present an idea and let the school help you take it to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. So now I want to switch to the other end of the college spectrum. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about begin with the end in mind. So we talked about the beginning of college, right? Now we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit to the end. And Brandon, so Brandon, as a college graduate, how would you advise our scholars on setting themselves up for success after college, right? You got to start planning that early and thinking about that, not let it weigh so heavily that that's all you think about, right? You got to have fun, like Tony and Michael have said already. But how would how do they set themselves up for success? How important is networking, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. And I think I'd echo Michael, number one, freshman year, go out and join experiences, find the different opportunities, be willing to get out of your comfort zone, because it's really just a great year to learn who you are as a person, expand, become whatever you're about to be. And then as you go through college, of course, you're going to start having the kind of weight of figuring out what you want to do. And so Carleton College, small liberal arts college, I didn't have to declare a major or anything till the end of my sophomore year. So it was kind of nice to be able to not fully have to think about it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people, because that's just what the Reagan Scholarship is going to kind of bring into this cohort. There's a lot of kind of type A who know what they want to do and have kind of planned this thing out. And for you guys, I think the biggest thing is you're going to find this career center or an alumni center that's at the school. And if you can start early and figuring out what opportunities are through that, what alums are there. And one of the best things that happened to me was I did a good job of kind of networking with a number of different individuals at my school. I would look at people who were long tenured into their careers, 10, 15, 20 years, who had had the whole gamut of opportunities. That's really cool when you finally kind of whittle down and say, hey, I want to get into finance or engineering, or I want to be a doctor. Getting and talking to those people is really good to figure out exactly how did they get into that career path? What kind of things can you do while you're in school to help you get to that? But also talking to young professionals. And that's one thing where even the Reagan Foundation Scholarship, right? You've got a whole network of individuals who are out in different fields. Finding those people who, and for me, it was good to do that at the beginning, because those people, it's less stressful. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm reaching out to somebody who's been doing this for 20 years. I know nothing about this career. You can go and reach out to those young professionals. And that really helps you figure out, okay, what did the market look like for you when you went out for a job? What are some of the things that a lot of you are going to experience transitioning from college out into the workforce? And so those network things and just hitting those low-hanging fruit of whether it's the Career Center, whether it's networks you already have from the Reagan Foundation, other ones, and just alums in your college, different clubs that you might have been involved in that you can use that as a connection. Those are important things. And then, of course, you're going to have, once you declare a major and do all that, you're going to have advisors, different people who are going to help you figure out those careers. And the best thing then is taking those resources, using them to either help you learn how to interview, get those internships and interviews that are going to get you the skills on that resume to build towards that career. And ultimately, For me, the best thing I did was experiment. When I went into college, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to go to law school. Freshman year, took a couple of classes in intro micro and intro macroeconomics, ultimately ended up becoming an econ major, and now I work in banking. So you never know what your ultimate path is going to be, but by experimenting, trying things out, doing internships, externships, and talking to individuals, you're going to get a better idea of what do I want in a career and how can I get there with all the different resources at my disposal.
Excellent. Great advice, Brandon. Thank you very much. I want to turn to Peyton now. So Peyton, we've heard a lot about all the different things that are available to you in college, right? Clubs and activities and college and classes and looking at different majors and trying to find yourself. There's a lot, right? Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. So one of the things you really have to be on the watch out for is burnout, especially over the course of these past year and a half or so. Burnout, mental health is so important to having a successful collegiate experience. Do you have any strategies that you want to share for how scholars can prevent burnout, how they can manage their time, and how did you do it? How were you able to manage all the different things you have in college?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely, like Michael was saying, like you can get overloaded with classes, but you can also get overloaded with a lot of opportunities. I know my freshman year, I tried to take advantage of everything that I could. If anybody brought up any sort of club or organization, I wanted to be a part of it. And I definitely felt the effects of that my first quarter at UW. I think the best thing that I found was just like really organizing my time well. Some advice I got from a mentor was you need to figure out what the big rocks are, your top priorities within like your life, whether it be like spending times with your friends and family, your studies, whatever it may be. Really put those in a schedule before anything else. And then every little thing will just fall into place. So like what I would do was I would schedule my classes, my clubs that I was a part of, and then I would find like a 1 hour gap here to go study for a class, or 2 hours to go hang out with my friends, so whatever it was. So definitely just find a system that works for you to organize your time. I am a huge candidate for Google Calendar. It's my best friend because it gives me a little alert as soon as I have something coming up. And then I also have another app that sort of shows me all of my assignments, because I could get behind on those pretty easily if I just get overwhelmed with my clubs and organizations. So keep a list of that and schedule out the correct amount of time to get it done, whether it be like 3 or 4 hours. Make sure that you put that into your calendar, into your time. And once you sort of test the waters with a bunch of different organizations and clubs, choose which ones are your top priority. Definitely what I had to do was list out which ones I wanted to be a part of the most. And I dedicated more time to that. So for me, I'm a part of the Association of Latinx Professionals for America. And that was a huge priority for me. So I made sure I scheduled out all the time I needed to get stuff done for the organization. I was on the board this past year, so I had to make flyers, send out emails. So I definitely just scheduled that into my calendar. With regards to mental health, it's super important. And I think sometimes we can lose track of that in the midst of everything else going on, especially with this whole pandemic. Sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in everything else that you just forget about it. So one of the best tips that I have for myself is like at the end of the day, the last hour, I just don't touch my phone. I don't go on any technology, just sort of to decompress at the end of the day, because there's so much that's going on. And sometimes you just need to take that moment for yourself, reflect on how you're feeling about everything, and then move on from there. So definitely just find some time within your day to sort of just focus on you and see how you're responding to everything else going on around you.
Oh, fantastic. Great advice, Peyton. Thank you. So my next question has to do, Peyton right now is in an internship. There are lots of different kind of opportunities that exist beyond the college structure, everything from internships to study abroad programs. And Odyssey, I know that you participated in a particular one that's very close and near and dear to our hearts here at the Reagan Foundation, which is the Leadership in the American Presidency program. Do you mind telling our scholars a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I will start off by saying it is an absolutely amazing opportunity to be part of the LTAP program. So to answer some probably questions that you have is, I know from Berkeley, whenever they had summer classes, since LTAP does have a presidency, the American Presidency class built into it, the first concern of mine was, well, I'm going to have an internship in DC and I want to be taking the summer class. Is that going to be too much of a time commitment? Am I going to be taken away from the internship? And the answer to that is no. It was actually, I was shocked because Berkeley has very demanding summer classes. It's very condensed. But the way LTAP has structured their American Presidency class is you're pretty much learning on site in DC. And that is wonderful because from a classroom, you can go on the whiteboard. Usually they'll just show you circles of how the executive branch works and how it interacts with the other two branches of government. With LTAP, you're actually in DC. So if you're going to go to see History of George Washington, we took a field trip out to George Washington's home and we got a full tour of it. Or if you want to learn more about the founding fathers, we also visited Monticello. You get an up-close look with them. There were also a lot of speaker series that were organized by LTAP. I thoroughly enjoyed our 2-day trip to the University of Virginia. And I was particularly interested in a press module that they had where they were discussing, they had reporters that used to work back in the 60s, and they were saying how the press has changed from a weekly news cycle to a daily news cycle. And now even in more modern times with instant messaging, Twitter feeds, Facebook, you got some of these smaller publications that are even at a faster than 24-hour news cycle. They constantly are monitoring to have the first scoop out. There are some drawbacks associated with that, but I absolutely love the speaker series that they had set up. We got to visit some think tanks. AEI was on the list, and it was wonderful to hear from some of their executives there. And at the same time, the biggest benefit, obviously, of LTAP, while you're getting college credit for the American Presidency class, you're doing an internship in DC. And I ended up interning for Kevin McCarthy, who is the minority leader for the House. And it was an absolute blast being able to combine class concepts. It wasn't directly related to the executive, but you could still find the avenues and the pathways of how the legislature in the minority leader's office connects back to what you're learning in the class.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much, Odyssey. And just a reminder that anybody who qualifies as a GE-Reagan Scholar also automatically qualifies for an additional scholarship if they decide to participate in the LTAP program, because we'd love to have you come back over and over again, whether it's as an intern through LTAP and that sort of thing. But now, speaking of internships, Tony, you know a thing or two about internships. What are some of the skills that you like to see college students developing when they enter the internship program at GE or as a new hire into the organization?
So, Tony, great question. Maybe not the easiest to answer. We heard about Google Calendars and time management and not overloading yourself. There's a lot of, skills that, GE and every employer that we're looking for. So I'm not going to go into each and every one that, we would come across, but I'm going to go through a few that I think are important and will help differentiate you as you're having your internships or as you go into full-time employment. Again, keep in mind that you're going to refine, these skills and build new skills, throughout your collegiate career. And then once you start into your full-time role. So here are some important ones in my opinion. First off, continuous learning. You'll never stop and you shouldn't stop. And if you are, take a break, figure out what's going on, and then start learning it again. You cross culture, just as, Michael was talking about, he got engaged with, upperclassmen, use your time when you're in college to get to know everyone, right? As much as you can, don't overload it, like Peyton said, but really get to understand all the different cultures out there. When you're in your internship, you're likely going to work for a company that is global, leverage it and reach out and talk to people. Another one, one of my, Tony's first question to me, dealing with change and uncertainty, that your life's going to have it. So, that's a skill that you need to just always keep working on and refining. Along with that, adaptability. You're going to have to change. So be ready and go for it. Another one, you've heard, everyone on this session, talk about a lot of things. And what I've heard a lot of everyone say is they've had a lot of initiative. That's one, whether you're in your internship or in a full-time role, volunteer, ask for that hard, when someone asks for a volunteer to do a tough project, do it. Even if you don't know what to do, the people you're working with will help you get there. And then the last one, the networking that was talked about earlier, your interpersonal skills. have that elevator pitch ready, whether you're looking for an internship or a full-time role, or you're looking to get into that new student organization. Be able to talk, be able to communicate. And I know you wouldn't be here if you couldn't do that, but always continue to refine that. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and great advice. The volunteering, I know, as somebody who's worked with a lot of interns here on site and worked with students and employees over the years, those folks who raise their hands and roll up their sleeves and help you get things done are the types of folks who are just the sorts of leaders we seek out in this scholarship program. Speaking of leaders and leadership activities, Michael, you mentioned earlier kind of starting up your own startup. What were some of the leadership activities that you've been involved with on campus?
Yeah, so aside from starting that startup and sort of managing a team like virtually, I think that I've had some experience with in-person clubs, which has been really exciting. I had the pleasure of joining the water club, for example, and being able to organize summits and to organize workshops and have experts come in to speak to students. That's been a huge blast. But honestly, whenever you guys are seeking out leadership roles, a huge piece of advice that I give to you all is to really just work hard in whatever organization that you end up being a part of and liking. I think to echo Peyton a little bit, you really want to try a bunch of different things and then stick to a couple that you really enjoy. But once you find those ones that you really enjoy, you might not necessarily see a direct path to like a leadership role, and that might not necessarily be the best thing to like constantly search for. But rest assured, like if you work hard and you put a lot of effort into whatever organization that you want to be a part of, whether you're joining a club and you come up with creative ideas, the leadership in that club and that organization will see that as potential, and you'll get that opportunity in the future. So I definitely recommend trying out different things and just sticking to certain organizations and clubs that you end up really enjoying and that you're willing to put a lot of effort into, because that'll naturally make way to leadership opportunities. That's what I saw in participating in Water Club. And I think that aside from that, I definitely recommend just trying a bunch of different things and definitely going out for, and the thing about like starting a startup, I guess in my experience, is that if you want to do something sort of aside from pre-existing organizations and pre-existing structures, that's definitely an option too. So if you have an idea, or if you want to start a club or a startup or a nonprofit organization, there's resources on campus to do that too. So definitely don't rule that out. That's always an amazing option.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. And before I got another question, I'm going to go to Peyton next, but I just want to encourage our scholars. If you have any questions of anyone on the panel, feel free to just type them in the chat and we'll mix them in, because we definitely want to hear your questions too. I went to college a long time ago, so my questions might not be at all pertinent to what you're experiencing and thinking about. But so Peyton, unfortunately, we couldn't bring these scholars out to the Reagan Library this year. Our aim and our hope is to bring them out next year. But what was your experience? So you came out in 2019, if I remember correctly. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience at the Scholars Retreat?
Yeah, for sure. I think the greatest thing that I got from the whole retreat was the network. I know we've talked about networking, but honestly, the network of people that you get to meet, being a Reagan Scholar is incredible. It's one of the greatest opportunities that I've ever gotten the chance to receive. And it's really, you feel a sense of these are the leaders of tomorrow all surrounding you, and you really are. Each one of you is so successful already, but there's so many things that we already know that you guys are going to do in the future. There is people going into science and telling me about biology stuff that I don't understand, but I know that they're going to do something incredible in the future. We have doctors, lawyers, we have a little mix of everything within this whole organization. And it's really just been the greatest opportunity to see everybody's successes along their journey as they graduate, as they're still in college. It's honestly one of the greatest opportunities. And then, of course, the Reagan Library is absolutely beautiful. I had never been down to Simi Valley, but it was amazing. My mom and I went back to the Reagan Library after the whole retreat just because we wanted to go see the view again and explore a little bit more, because there's so much to see within that whole vicinity. But yeah, it was honestly the greatest opportunity to sort of just meet the scholars and see who is going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and to really just get a greater sense of the possibilities within the next few years that these leaders hold.
Excellent. Oh, thank you very much, Peyton. So we've talked a little bit about some of the resources and programs the Reagan Foundation continues to offer, but I also wanted to talk about some of the amazing resources that our friends at GE have offered over the years and that many of our scholars have taken advantage of. So Brandon, you attended the Global Leadership Forum at GE's Crotonville campus a few years ago. What was your experience like when you went out to Crotonville?
Absolutely. First, it was just amazing, the opportunities and the things you get through this scholarship program and from GE and support, it's fantastic. And when we got to head out there, first you kind of get to meet scholars from different cohorts, right? You get to know your cohort pretty well. And I know, like, even after when my session left the Reagan Library, like your first year of college, you might be still, there's a bunch of people that you knew and you're staying connected with, and Facebook messaging and things like that. But then when we got there, you first get to expand that Reagan network, because now you've met all these different people from different cohorts while you're there. And for me, that was just amazing to deepen that relationship. And then on top of that, jumping off of Tony's point about that continual learning, you have these amazing, amazing instructors. And I just know there's so many different little lessons and tidbits that I took from that when, one of the things I always joke with people when they're like, how do you make sure you take advantage of these different things? I always say, like, have a notebook, have a pen, and be ready to be a sponge. And when you're there, just sitting down and getting to learn and experience these great opportunities that are going to expand your knowledge base, and things that really helped me when I did it. It was right before I was going to go into my first kind of big internship in college. Having all those little learning opportunities that I got from that, taking those and then putting them into practice going forward, whether it was at the internship, whether it was while I'm still in school, that's what I really loved with it, and the amazing learning that you got to do. And then, of course, just it's a beautiful campus. It was like the food was fantastic. It was just an all-around awesome experience, and you kind of get that first experience of going out and seeing that kind of thing. And then the leaders that we got to talk to as well and hear their insights of their career experiences was amazing.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon, for sharing that experience. My next question is going to be for Odyssey. So you talked a little bit about your LTAP experience, and we just can't keep you away, Odyssey. You keep coming back, and now you're here this summer. You're interning with us, and I know you've been an intern for a grand total of about 7 or 8 days now. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what your internship has been like so far here on campus, and what some of your plans are for this summer as part of the internship.
Yeah, and I keep coming back because the Reagan Foundation just has such wonderful programs. I mean, who wouldn't want to keep coming back? Yeah, it's an absolute blast working here. The first week it wasn't even work at this point. You're looking at the end of the day and it's like, oh, it's already 2 p.m. We have to log out. I mean, come on, where did all the time go? So as an intern here, the primary role is working with the student leadership program. And I did it when I was in high school, and it's an absolutely amazing program that actually allowed me to figure out what kind of leader and personality style I have. And that really set me up for going to college and knowing how I'm going to interact with other students there. And I really do believe it played a significant role in my success, knowing how I fit into any leadership position. It's especially important. So we have a great intern team here, absolutely fabulous working with the staff here in the Reagan Library. The intern team feels like a family, honestly. It's not really a hired position. I don't feel that way. It's whatever you want to say, whatever's on your mind, just feel free to talk about it. And there's also a whole bunch of other opportunities here. And this is why I really appreciate what the Reagan Library does and how much they invest in their educational programs. I came on board on this internship just thinking it's going to be the student leadership program. I wanted to help out. I wanted to give back to the program because it really helped me in high school. And now that I'm on board the program, yes, we're working on the student leadership program, but the education team has now asked all of the interns, well, put together your goals for this summer, because even though you're hired to help for the student leadership program, we're still here to help you. So I was compiling my goals, and now all of a sudden I'm working on the student leadership program. I'm now going to be working with Megan to finish up the new virtual simulation for the press room, which is absolutely fabulous. If you ever have an opportunity to experience it, highly recommend it. It's very engaging. And then to add a little splash into my education as well, I was completely not expecting this. They asked me, so you have done a lot of computer science work, you're going to electrical engineering and computer science for your master's. How can we help you with that? And now they're scheduling me with meetings with the IT personnel here at the Reagan Library. They're going to have me sit down and talk with a former employee who has, I believe, I might be wrong on this, but is recently back on board after working with the Department of Defense. So he is going to be a treasure trove of knowledge, and I'm going to be able to pick his brain. So yeah, to sum all of that up, I know I've been all over the place here. The Reagan Library, I really appreciate their education program because they really look after what will help you improve. And if they don't have it immediately available, they will find the tools to help you achieve that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Odyssey, for such great thing. I can tell you, I mean, firsthand from working with our education team here, there's nothing that our team loves more than connecting a scholar to another opportunity, or somebody who has gone through a couple of years prior, or somebody who's interested in the same field and might just be a good person to grab a coffee with or something like that. It's really exciting. I'm going to give you a peek behind the scenes here before I head over, and I got another question for Tony in a second. But really, what Odyssey was talking about was we have this concept in our leadership development here at the foundation. We're helping students kind of climb a leadership ladder. So no matter where students come to us, whether you're a fifth grade student who comes to us to go on a field trip, whether you're a high school student who comes for part of the SLP, the student leadership program that Odyssey was talking about, whether you're a GE-Reagan scholar who has proven that you are among the very finest leaders and scholars in the entire country, whether you're up in college, whether you have graduated like Brandon has, you know, we're looking for ways to engage you, to connect you, to help, kind of help you along that leadership journey. And our team really does take a lot of pride in being able to do that. There's nothing that makes us happier. So Tony, you have met most of our GE-Reagan scholars over the years. And these students in the fall are heading off to college. What advice would you leave them with for as they get ready to head off to college?
Well, first off, I want to thank all the panelists because you've made this easy for me. You've kind of hit on a number of things that I was going to say. So a few things I'm going to say, it's going to be a highlight of what's been said already. I'll start off with this. Be proactive and plan. And what I mean by that is you're going into college this fall, and I'm going to mention a little bit later, really quickly, and it's the Career Center. Use them. Go to the Career Center even before classes start and start determining what you're going to do during the summer of 2022. And even at that point, as a rising sophomore, there are internships out there. So get ready and position yourself so you have that edge. Next, take full advantage of all the services afforded to you by your university. A few have been mentioned already. I'm going to hit it again, the Career Center. Do not forget the Career Center. Campus events, as we've mentioned earlier, getting involved. And when I say getting involved with a student organization, pick at least two. One that's tied to your major, another one for fun. Next, get to know your professors. Go to their office hours. Get to know them. They are a wealth of information, and they are very connected with industry, research, fill in the blank, but you just never know how they're going to be able to help you out. Next one, leverage the GE-Reagan Foundation Scholar family. Tony just mentioned the help that can be out there, but it's endless. Next one, volunteer and support the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. Somehow, some way, it may be tomorrow, it may be 4 years from now, it may be 15 years from now, but always have that institution in the back of your mind and support them. Next one, stay connected to me and the other Reagan family members. Contact me if you need anything. I've got to put a plug in there for GE. Like GE, many other companies also will be looking for interns and full-time positions. But with the incoming scholars that are starting college this fall, be looking for those opportunities starting in August and September. Most companies will fill the majority of their internship roles and full-time roles in the fall. And lastly, have fun and make a difference.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful advice, Tony. Thank you very much. I want to leave some time for questions from our current crops of scholars. So if you want to pop up on screen, you can. If you want to type it in the chat, that's okay too. We'd love to hear any questions you have. And until such time as we get a question, I'm going to ask you a question for our college kind of GE-Reagan scholar. Tony, you can chime in on this one too. But what was the moment, or what did you most fear going into your freshman year in college? What was your biggest fear? I'll share mine real quick. I'll give you a second to think about it while I share mine. But I was a good student in high school. I was not a GE-Reagan scholar type student, but I was a pretty good student and was in honors classes, that sort of thing. When I went off to college and I discovered how smart everyone else was, it made me feel not that smart anymore. And so my fear was that I had been found out, a little bit of imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And then I determined, like through hard work and stuff like that, I determined, okay, maybe I'm like half as smart as I was, but not still quite as smart as these people. But that was definitely like part of my big fear of college, was moving from a smaller pond into a bigger pond and realizing, oh my gosh, I have to kind of step up my game a little bit. Anybody else?
I can go ahead and go. Kind of echoing what Tony said, imposter syndrome is very much real, and it will hit you during college. I think it's probably impacted everybody that I know. You'll definitely have those moments in classes where you're like, I'm just not getting it. And you'll see everybody else around you and you're like, they're just way smarter than me. I don't belong in this seat. And at the end of the day, you do. And it's just framing your mindset to realize, like, I am my own person and then my journey is going to be different from theirs. And so I think it definitely took me some time to realize that and sort of overcome that when I entered college. So if you experience that, like, find those people around you too that are going to support you. I have a great friend group that always we always reassure each other. We're like, you're doing great. Even if you don't feel like you're doing great, you are at the end of the day, and you're being the best person that you can be. You're doing your best work in everything that you do. So definitely believe in yourself all the way through.
Yeah, I'd probably say something slightly different, but definitely that is very true. Imposter syndrome is very real. But probably my biggest fear going into college was not finding a friend group, not finding like people that I share common interests with. But that is so far from the truth. You guys will find people that you enjoy hanging out with, and that's going to be something that comes pretty easily, I think, because college is a big place. MIT is a relatively small institution compared to like most others, and still I was able to find people really easily that share common interests and that was able to support me and be in the same classes and everything like that. So I think as a freshman you have a really unique opportunity, especially if you're taking course loads that have similar classes as many other students, because you all share this like common experience and it becomes really easy to like connect with other people. So take advantage of that very special time that you have in freshman year where you have so many things in common, and there's so many other people that are also looking to start their like friend groups and make those connections.
I would like to add on that my biggest challenge was a culture shock for me, academically that is, because high school, you're given a set curriculum, you have a homework assignment every night, you show up the next day, turn in the assignment, and all is well, you go on with the lesson plan. When I went to Berkeley my freshman year, the speed of the courses, the more hands-off approach, also the larger class size, some of my lecture halls had over 1,600 students enrolled. It really is a very different approach to academics that can feel intimidating. You can feel like you are in a much larger ocean. It can feel difficult at times to get resources if you are stuck in a class. And actually, I really messed up my first semester because I was really set on doing computer science. And I thought, well, I took AP CSA in high school. So I have enough background, I can just jump into their intro to computer science course at Berkeley. And I took it as if it was a regular high school course. And what I realized, I ended up dropping it my first semester freshman year. Because after the first midterm, and you get a 48% on the midterm, you're saying, well, this isn't going too well. And you really realize then that your study techniques sometimes need to adapt. You have to go about seeking resources quite differently than you do in high school. So just keep that in mind. And one other advice I would give, and I know Tony mentioned it, what I found to be more beneficial even than my advisors sometimes were the professors. I had 3 key professors throughout my undergraduate career that even when I was not taking a class, they knew me, so I could sign up for their office hours. And if I had a problem, I could just sit down and talk with them. And they usually know a lot about how to navigate the college campus, especially the one you're attending. And they sometimes know a bit too about career paths. So definitely use your professors as resources.
Absolutely. And I think the thing I'd echo in this, for me, the fear was that there was a lot of activities I knew I wanted to be involved with, and how was I going to manage my time? That was my biggest fear going into school, just because, I mean, a lot of you who are Reagan Scholars, you have the same thing from high school. Like, you're in a lot of activities, you volunteer, you give your time, and I always joke that I had to learn how to say no to things. I had to learn that there's schedules, there's things that are important to me, and figuring out that was my first year at school, was just, okay, what's the classes, how much time I'm going to have to dedicate to this, and how much time can I dedicate to other things. And so to go off like what Peyton talked about, figuring out a schedule for you and how to manage that is important. And then Tony, I'll throw 2 things in before you can throw more questions at us. But the first thing I'd say is that one of the things that I tell everybody when you're going into college, study abroad. That was my favorite thing when I was in school. I mean, it sparked my love for travel now. Coming from a small town in Minnesota, then going to a small college, getting to go to London when I had studied abroad for 3 months and just completely out of my comfort zone, learning something new. Absolutely loved it. Went and then did 2 more abroads in Bangladesh and in Thailand while I was still in school, and just amazing. So take advantage of that while you're there. And then make sure that when you are in those activities, like, find something that you enjoy and then dive in, focus, building those skills and those technical things that you're going to need. Networks are great, all of that stuff, but also make sure that when you have questions, when you need to learn those things, figure out what you don't know. Self-scout thyself was always what my coaches and advisors would say, is know what you don't know and then know how to solve it. Know who the people are you can go to help you with that. That's something big that I've brought with me into work, is just figure out what I don't know, figure out who's going to help you with that answer. People want to help. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Excellent. Oh, great advice. Yeah, and study abroad. If I could chime in, I studied abroad when I was in college. I went to Australia and loved it. Sparked a love of travel, like you said. We actually have kind of a cohort of former GE-Reagans. Well, you never really leave. You're a GE-Reagan scholar, but who have some amazing travel stories. Braden Drevlo is a great YouTube. There's a video of him kind of riding around in armored vehicles in Ukraine. He played kind of one of the oldest pianos in, I think it was Ethiopia. So I know he's traveled pretty extensively too. So that's a and one plus like for what Brandon said. I don't know if Tony, did you want to chime in or share a story too?
I think everyone hit on things I had, but the one thing I will share is when I was coming out of high school, my best friends went to other schools, and they knew who they're going to room with, or it was maybe another best friend at our high school. So I was kind of going in dark, and believe it or not, I wasn't as outgoing back then. Just ask my wife, ask my family, but I turned around and I was making that turn later in high school. But what I learned is, what some of the other panels have said is, like Michael said, he was kind of forced, and I won't say forced, but he was provided an opportunity to be with some upperclassmen. And that's what happened to me. And I had a little twist. I had my roommate dropped out, right before Thanksgiving or maybe about halfway through. So I was kind of, throwing a curveball there. But the fact that I got to know some other people in the dorm, some were freshmen, some were upperclassmen, that really helped me out a bunch. And then just, tagging on to what Brandon said, and it ties back to being humble. Don't be concerned. Don't be afraid to go ask the professor for help, your counselor for help, the career center for help, anyone for help. That's one of the things through the pandemic, that's really been good for me is we had to do that when we stood up some programs, basically overnight. So leverage that entire ecosystem within the university setting.
Excellent. Yeah. So we have about 4 minutes left, and I have a couple of housekeeping notes, but I just want to give one last chance. Oh, wait, it looks like before my question, it looks like Brett Phelps has a question. So Brett, I'm going to pull you up and turn it over to you.
First, I'd like to say thank you to all the panelists for being here and providing your knowledge to us. So my question is, when should we look for internships with like a global corporation versus looking for internships in a local business close to us?
So Brad, I'll give an answer here. There's really not a good answer there other than getting to know the employees, get to know the culture, right? Try to figure out what the internship is and how it aligns with your passion, right? I wouldn't say, here's my answer to that. Do both. Do both. Because it's really going to give you an opportunity to see both sides of the house. And I would even throw a startup in there, like with what Michael was saying. That's what an internship is all about. It's providing you an opportunity to test the company, get to know the people. Yeah, they're the same thing too, but it's your opportunity to see where your passion is, what you love, so that when you graduate, you'll be able to make the most informed decision. That helped?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet.
The only thing I'd add on to that is exactly what Tony said. Remember, this is a two-way street when you do an internship, right? They're looking at you and you're looking at them. When you're really early in your career, my first internship, quote unquote, was a 4-week program at 3M my sophomore year. And I got to see massive company, right? And then I did another 4-week internship later that year at a small asset management firm with 10 people, right? What was cool with that is you got to see what are the differences of that, what do you like, what fits you. So remember, it's a two-way street. You want to go and you want to figure out, what do I like, what do they like, figure out what matches up with you. And yeah, why not do both?
Thank you.
Peyton, I don't know if you want to chime in. I know you're interning right now with a large corporation.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely echoing what they all said. I definitely chose Nordstrom because the culture just really fit me well. I worked there in the store itself for the past 3 summers. So I really got to know more about the culture and the people there. And I absolutely loved it. But definitely network as much as you can and get to know the people there. A lot of times I met different companies through the clubs that I was involved with. They'd hold different sessions with the different companies. So go out there and to talk to the recruiters about what the environment is like there, and to reach out to people on LinkedIn too. Utilize that tool as much as you can. Sometimes I'll just message somebody if there's a company I'm really interested in. Just reach out because they're always looking to talk to people about their company. They love talking about their companies. So just reach out as much as you can to get a better idea of it, sort of what the whole culture is of the company.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Great question. And we're coming up on the end of our time here. So first of all, I want to thank Tony, Peyton, Brandon, Michael, Odyssey. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion, for sharing all your great insights with our scholars. I know I appreciated it and appreciated it to see you again. And it's just fun. Odyssey, I'll see you all summer, but this isn't the end of me. A couple things just for tonight. So our next session is going to be our awards presentation later this evening, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then fill in the gaps if you're one of the in-between time zones, using hashtag GE-Reagan for whatever social media you might be using. Expect Aaron will be sending out a survey later. So for all of our participants, we're always interested in your feedback. We want to make sure this is not just here's an award, but we want to get your input on the whole experience. That's really important to us. If you haven't yet done so, feel free to join our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. And then for the awards presentation tonight, business attire. is requested. It's going to be on Zoom webinar. So if you have not yet registered for the Zoom webinar, or if you need the link, we can send it to you. But please register in advance so you're not kind of anxiously trying to sign up and waiting for the email to get you into it. Share the link with your family and friends. Certainly they are invited to join in and watch and celebrate with you. Your entire family can join with you and be a part of the ceremony. That'll be fun. And then we will bring you up to the virtual stage and have a loved one who's home with you bestow a Reagan Foundation pin. I think I see Michael's wearing his. Is Tony, are you wearing, or you got your GE one? You know, you got the Reagan one. See, I have mine on my coat in the background. I'll be wearing it tonight, I promise. But have someone who can put that on you. It's kind of a fun part of the virtual ceremony is the pinning. And other than that, I think, Aaron, did I cover it all? I think I did. Other than that, we will see everybody back in about 3 hours. So, Aaron?
Nope, you got everything. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, panelists, thank you so much, and we will see you very soon.
Bye, everyone.